So we've successfully created a pattern and looks pretty good, but it's not a grid. It's a basic grid, but we really wanted this to be a weave or more like a checkered pattern that you would expect to see in carbon fiber. And ultimately that's what we want here in the background of this entire document. In fact, in our dense black background, we want this nice weave. So let's figure out a cool way to do that. I'm going to go back to the main selection tool because we don't need any more shapes at this point in time. I'm going to come down here to our original graphics, delete the white one that's on top, and select this first one. And what we want to do is use our keyboard shortcut from earlier to pull up our split into grid function. Okay, remember we set that up at the beginning of the training. And what we'll do here is very simply change this to 2 rows by 2 columns. Let's go ahead and hit preview. We can see what's happening. It's kind of cool with the space in there, but what we need is 0 space. I want this to be a nice tight grid, okay, no gaps. Then we can say OK, and then come down here and let's select maybe either top left and bottom right or top right and bottom left. It's up to you. And we'll go ahead and fill those with white. All right. Bear in mind that a pattern is completely repeating. So if we want something like a checker pattern, we have to do it like this because the upper left point here is then going to be copied over here, which means then we'll have black, then we'll have white, and the same down. So it's very easy to create these repeating patterns if you set them up correctly. So once again, drag across those to select them, click and drag down here into the swatches panel to create a brand new pattern swatch 3. Then we can come back over to our graphic here in the background of our flyer and apply that swatch by clicking on it down here. Now you can see perfectly repeating pattern exactly as we need it. Now once again, size-wise, we can readjust this. I'm going to go back to my scale option and double click to bring up our dialog box. Maybe change it to 90%, and once again, remember, turn off objects. You'll notice that comes back on again by default. There's a reason for that. Obviously, most people do want to scale objects. So go ahead and turn that off, say OK, and once again, if you like, continue to nudge down that scale until you get the size that you want. Now, black and white is obviously very harsh here. That's not what we're going to use, but we can see that the size is set, the pattern is set. Now we present ourselves with a different challenge. Go ahead and deselect. I'm going to drag across those shapes and delete them. All right, let's say we've saved our document and down in the future line we decide, you know what, the black and white isn't working. We really want dense black in the background and the white to be just slightly lighter than that, so it's a very subtle finish, okay? Well, we've deleted our graphics. How do we generate a new pattern that's exactly the same shape and size with the same grid split that we had and then just change the color? Well, I'll show you how. What we'll do first, just to tidy up our swatches panel, is get rid of those 2 additional swatches we created. So all we have left is our new pattern swatch 3. Then we can simply, if you like, double click it to bring up the options. And we'll call this carbon fiber weave, okay? Go ahead and say okay. To get the graphics back, all you have to do is click on the swatch and drag it out onto the page, and you'll notice it always remembers where those shapes came from, all right? So very cool that we can bring them back and edit them. Now they come back as a group, so in order to change the colors, it's best if we double click to go into isolation mode. Then we can select the 2 white shapes here. What we'll do is we'll fill them with our dense black swatch so it matches the other 2 shapes, but then we can come to the color panel and tint this down. Remember, this is what I said when we applied our spot silver earlier on. We can apply tint swatches, okay? So have a look at how that looks. You can go as light or as dark as you want, you know, subtle or extreme changes of color. I'm going to go maybe about 85%. Always feel free to deselect and just get a sense of how that looks. So you just want that slight subtlety between those 2 colors. Now when we're done, if we double click back out of isolation mode, here's the trick. We want this item to update our pattern here, and therefore it automatically updates in our artwork wherever it's used. Well, as you know, if you click and drag on the shape and drag it into the panel, it will create a new pattern. However, let's bring that option key back in, the all-powerful option key. Hold down your option, Alt on the PC, and drag onto the existing swatch. Have a look at what happens. We get a border selection around there. That tells us we're going to replace it. If you now let go, you'll see not only does this update, but more importantly, the artwork here on screen updates, and we've got our perfect carbon fiber pattern in there. How cool is that? So once again, we now know we can delete these graphics because we know where they're stored if we need to access them again in future. And then whilst we're here, we may as well apply the carbon fiber to our entire background. So it's up to you how you do it. You could use the eyedropper and just apply the color. What I can do is simply select those 2 backgrounds here and apply our carbon fiber weave. Now, I do that for a reason. You can see that the default size is set to the size of the swatch, not what we've got in our flyer down in the bottom right, okay? This is why I would actually prefer to use the eyedropper tool, because it will pick up the actual size and everything that has been changed in that fill. All right, so I just wanted to guide you down that route to show you how you might be able to affect this in the future. So undo that, deselect, we don't need anything highlighted. We'll come over to the eyedropper tool, or keyboard shortcut is I. come down to our carbon fiber background and we'll click to load up the swatch, okay? Hold down your Option key so that we can see it's full, and then we can go over and click on our background here and also here, and you can see it's been applied into both of those at exactly the same size. When you're done, go back to the main selection tool. We could, again, lock our backdrop color here just to be safe. Most importantly, let's go up to the File menu and choose Save.